welcome back to Yvonne and Steve, loyal marzipanners from Series 1, where you talked a lot about managing the crisis and the use of the office, and agile working in particular. So we'd love to hear, what have you been thinking, and are you back in the office? So, Yvonne and Steve, over to you.
Great, thank you. I will share the screen, and I'm just going to say a few things for maybe about 5 minutes, and Steve will come in and talk much more about the digital culture, the digital office. So let me just share my screen. Hopefully this is coming up right now. How is that? Yeah?
Great.
Fabulous. Okay, so very pleased to be back. Yeah, we love golden marzipan. It's been a really interesting, well, quite a few months, hasn't it, with golden marzipan, and I think we're learning a fair bit. And I know we've got some people already on the call as heard us before, so we'll try and get the balance right between a quick update from me, but then new stuff more so from Steve. And the importance, I think, is how we get the debate and discussion and comments and things going. So we'll try and keep it pretty short. We're on a journey, and that's important for me to say. We've been on it, we're on it, and we'll still be going on it. And from a governance point of view, I think it's also important to say that, you know, working with our board, we all want to test some of this. We want to measure this. We want to make sure we've got a real robust business case for sustainability of the future before anything is finalised. So that's why it's important as a journey. We've tried to be quite strategic about this. It was a gem of an idea back in March, but actually, as we're going through it, what's really important is the strategy is around, certainly for this element, around our outstanding people. That's one of our key priorities, and how we attract, retain and reward people at Johnnie Johnson. And also the link is how our people do what they need to do in their roles to provide the outstanding homes, the outstanding services and the outstanding value that we've got. So we're wrapping it up. It is quite strategic. The how we work bit is we want to do all of these things, and the key to that is around the flexible working place, which is absolutely, as I said, strategically linked to delivering our objectives. So this is a slide that you might have seen before, and Steve, you circulate the slides for us anyway, don't you, at Golden Marzipan, so people can see the detail there. Thank you. So the journey here that we're on is, as I say, linked to outstanding people and outstanding services. And what we've got here is the how we work, the where we work. So the where we work, we've now sourced an innovation hub. It's in the Northwest. So we're really excited about that. That is our place where we believe that we will be collaborating. We'll be doing lots of innovative things, and also we will have space where people can come and meet each other. But what we've got here is other places to work from. So people might work from home, they might work in the schemes, and that links very much to getting to know our residents. That's one of our key things that we want to do, is to really understand our residents so we can help design our services and our homes around them. But people might just nip into a local coffee shop and have their check-in, for example. So that's the where we work. And in here you won't quite see, but actually from a green footprint, our estimates with how people want to work, where people want to work, is going to save around the equivalent of 32 flights return from Manchester to Sydney. So that's been a really interesting stats that one of our business analysis has done. This might be a little bit updated from what you've heard before. So linked to all of that is we're designing, and as I said, we will test, we will measure a flexible lifestyle policy. And the discussions I've had have been really interesting along the way about, you know, are you just catering for a certain number of people that can work from home because they have a nice home, maybe a garden, maybe a really good space to work? You know, what about Alex here? Alex is 25, he's out of uni, he lives with his mum and now. What about his space? You know, thinking about Tracy, who's married with 3 young children, what COVID really brought home to us is how complex people's lives are. You know, you might be in an office and you might have a chat with people and, you know, maybe somebody's having a bit of a tough time at home, but actually the complexities that COVID's brought around of people caring for their parents or caring for their neighbours, you know, schools, and maybe previously people balanced a school run. Well, now they're balancing homeschooling, and it's still all pretty complex, isn't it? And all quite different wherever you live. And partners now, you know, there's not just one person maybe that's working at home in a spare bedroom or their home office, but we found many of our colleagues, they were now you know, both mums and dads or partners at home, both working, both doing schooling. And so one of the things that we did do, so Tracy here is a persona for us, who was married, got 3 young children. She works part-time as well. You know, she wants to see her colleagues. And Helen here, who's 58, children's flown the nest. She is single. Not so tech savvy, so struggles a bit with that, and definitely wants to be in an office. So what we're doing here is our approach to what people might call equality and diversity is everyone's different, for all those reasons I've just said above. And one of the things that we did in lockdown, we did a survey, and I did a specific few coaching sessions with our operational leaders group, and 100% said they were much more productive in the way that we were working at the moment, and they were all exercising more, and that was 100%. And that was a range of, I've started running, I'm running further, I'm actually going out and walking my dog, whereas my partner did all that, you know, or I'm going for a walk myself, you know, lots of things. And let's be clear, we know a healthy head, a healthy body is all very much about helping productivity and having a happier workforce, which links back to our outstanding people and attracting, retaining and motivating really good colleagues. So that's a little update from me. I'm going to pass on to Steve, because to do all this, let's be clear, we need a good digital platform, we need a good digi office, and we need some digital skills. So Steve, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Yvonne. So, and I think one of the things that's really important to mention, in addition to what Yvonne said there, is that what we're trying to do is provide people with choice. You know, so this is not a one size fits all. We understand that people will have very different needs, and we're trying to provide a variety of different ways for people to work comfortably. And one of the things that we need to do to be able to make that a long-term feasible option is to digitalize a lot of our operational processes and to remove a lot of the transactions and paper that we drive through our organization, which will be similar to a lot of organizations as well. I'm sure there's a lot of familiarity there for some of you. So within digital communications, we already have an IT program. And what's been really interesting actually is that we've realigned that IT program based on what we're doing with remote working to make sure that we're delivering the things that can support digitalization. And that's things like rolling out service and emails. We do use emails at the moment, but they are very marketing orientated. So we'll be looking at how do we create those transactional emails to support customers and residents, and being able to move to PDF. It's all around choice, and obviously that we will have residents that still need to receive paper, but we are very much determined to digitalise as much of that paper as we can, and to educate residents through that journey. So there's a whole variety of things we're doing around digital initiatives, moving more functionality online, looking at things like push notifications and secure messaging. And we're actually working with our operational teams to think about the types of ways they can communicate with customers. Traditionally, that's telephony or correspondence. We're looking at how can we roll out more digital communication channels through an omni-channel solution so that they can service customers in a variety of different ways. The other really big nut that we've got to crack, as well as opening up our new innovation hub, is determining what we do with all of our archiving. So traditionally that is all stored in one location, and it's a physical storage space that we have, but we are going to be moving that to a digital solution. So we're starting to think about how can we move that to cloud storage as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then the operational efficiency. So, you know, as we move to more digitalization, as we open up more self-serve options, what we're hoping that does is remove a lot of transactional waste out of our organization. So we want to streamline those business processes, reduce that print and postage, and also reduce the amount of times a resident has to contact us, so that we can get their queries right first time. And I guess what really underpins all of that, and everything that Yvonne's talked about there, is taking everyone on that digital journey with us. It's absolutely vital, and I think what we've done, we've tried to do really well, and I think we have been very successful, is to take all of our colleagues on that journey with us. We've started to identify where those digital skill gaps are within the business, because we know everyone's been on a very steep learning curve these last 3 to 6 months, and we know that we need to invest in more digital training for our colleagues. So that's kind of underpins all the work that we're doing around mobilizing remote working as a permanent feature in the future, but also moving towards a digital operational service. It's been very interesting actually, because what we've looked at from a remote working perspective has been very much around the people and the culture, but what we're now finding is that actually we need to move towards the technology and the processes in order to make the former a reality. So that's the kind of journey that we're going through at the moment.
Thank you.
Pretty much it from us.
Thank you, Yvonne. Let's open up the debate a little bit. Has anybody any questions? My apologies, I put some of you on mute whilst we were listening to Yvonne. I heard a bit of background noise, but if you all want to unmute yourselves and contribute to the debate, that would be fantastic. Any questions for Yvonne or Steve?
We're on a similar journey, and I think lots of housing providers have been through since March, working out what the future looks like. We're now at a stage where we are considering our future as well and debating whether we will ever go back to the office. But what we've had through lockdown, certainly from the frontline services, is lots of objections, if you like, that working from home doesn't work for them. And that's because they're getting abuse from customers on the phone, the neighbourhood officers, the income officers, and they feel that getting that in the home when the children might be listening or the partners might be listening or other family members is not sustainable in the long term. And I just wondered whether you'd had anything similar in terms of feedback from your teams.
If I start and Steve come in if there's anything to add.
Sure.
We've not had that sort of feedback, Nadia, but what we have had is we have Astraline, a telecare monitoring service that works 24/7, and so the nights team particularly have struggled quite a bit with the logistics of, you know, picking up calls of people who have maybe fallen on the floor. There is quite a bit of shouting in those scenarios, you know, can you hear me, Mrs. Castle? You know, are you all right? Let me ring the ambulance. So so what we did do is we are renting a space. In the meantime, we haven't reopened our head office. We have found, as we've said, a new innovation hub. So we're renting somewhere in the meantime, just for, especially starting off with the nights team. That was where the areas were, but not from our frontline staff about abuse from customers. That is a new one to me. But absolutely understand there is complexities of different roles, isn't there?
Yeah, and I would just extend to say that what we are doing with our innovation hub, we want it to be a creative space, as Yvonne said earlier on, that people come together, they collaborate, and we innovate together. But we are mindful that there are certain roles within the business that do need that hand holding. You know, that it isn't practical, that they're answering very challenging, upsetting, and difficult calls and queries from residents at home. So what we've said, or what we're designing within our innovation space, is there will be a bank of desks, you know, call them hot desks if you like, and we're allocating those desks to Astraline and to also our Johnnie Johnson customer service team for them to utilise in whatever way they see fit. So they will be introducing a rota system, whereas the main variety, well, the bulk of us will probably use the innovation hub maybe 1 or even 2 days a week. Astraline and our customer service teams can utilise those desks that they've been allocated however they see fit. So if they do have 1 or 2 colleagues that in particular need that support, then they can go and use our innovation hub more frequently than the rest of us.
Okay,
that's really interesting, and I'm just trying to get a picture of what the innovation hub looks and feels like, you know. So how many desks, what do you do about your teas and coffees, how often is it cleaned, do you provide PPE equipment? Just, you know, can you just describe it a bit more for us?
Yeah, certainly. So I think what we're really keen is that we move to a model that is better than what we had before at our head office. So rather than being on 2 floors, we're now on 1 floor. It's a very open plan space. There is no kind of divide between the different areas of the innovation hub, and primarily the bulk of it is meeting space. So we have a product demo area where people may be able to showcase the latest product or technology that they may be working on. We also may want to invite residents into that product demo space so that we can do some research or some testing with them. We also have pods and collaboration space that essentially is workshop area. So there's whiteboards, there's digital screens so that we can dial people into those meetings, particularly those that aren't able to travel to participate in a meeting. And what we're also making sure is that the space is very flexible. So if we get in there and we determine that it's not quite working, or it needs to be slightly changed or reconfigured in some way, then we will have that flexibility within the hub. But to answer the question around teas and coffees, we will have our own kitchen. As I say, it's all on 1 floor. It will feel very modern, very fresh, very different from what our colleagues are used to. And we're trying to move away from that typical office environment that people are used to. But we're mindful that, as I say, there will be some colleagues in the business that still need to use the hub for general office work. So we're making sure that we can cater for some of that. But the rest of it is a very fresh, very vibrant and flexible space that colleagues can use. I think the biggest issue that we've had, or the biggest challenge that we've had, is trying to make sure we've got adequate storage facilities for teams that need to genuinely keep things stored. Because what we don't want to do is just move everything from our head office into this new hub. Otherwise, we'd practically have nowhere to physically work or collaborate. It would end up being storage unit rather than a hub for innovation.
Good. Anybody else got any questions? I've got one for Yvonne. Can't see anybody. Yvonne, and you're on mute. You were telling me earlier about this being a pilot scheme, and you discussing this with your board. So how have you pitched this through your governance processes?
Yes, thanks, Steve. That's a good one. We have, as I said before, whilst you've known us and you've seen the journey, and it's come from an idea, and then we've got everybody involved and done it bottom up, which is what Steve was saying through My Futures group. So as an organisation, we started to talk and test and survey people and listen and lots of those things, and then clearly start bringing in discussions in with our board. What we've got going at the moment, because there's three aspects to what our future looks like. One of them is the lifestyle approach to working, so hugely cultural. So we're working with our noms and rems. That's the committee, in a sense, where we're going with more detail and getting them bought into that and having their skills and input. One of the areas is closing down the office and hopefully building a brand new independent living scheme on it. We have room for around 50 homes. So that's going through our Johnnie Johnson Development Committee. Obviously, and again, we work with our committee members and their skill sets. And then we've got the service aspect. So this is really how all of it is coming together to help provide an improved service offer for our residents, which builds on improvements in our work to all our service areas that we've been doing over the last few years. So just building and continuously improving. But that, again, some of that is cultural, some of it might be structural. So we're working with our Noms and Rems committee on that. All of that goes to board. So we had a special strategy session, I think it was in July, with our board, and we broached the we sort of gave them thoughts of where we're at, what we've been doing, an indicative element around costs, obviously. And where we're at now is the board, as you would imagine, wants us to test things out so that the business case is really robust, as I say, for the future. What they don't want is one massive big bang approach to all of that together, and it touches all parts and all services, all people in the organisation. So that's how we'll work with our board, and we'll trial and test, pilot it, get the measures, and keep board updated. And then once we're absolutely sure of the long-term business case, hopefully we'll move into fully operational.
Do you have any sort of evaluation criteria? Are you doing regular surveys with your teams and stuff?
We're at the point now, in order to get that sort of we've got baseline stats from surveys that we've done throughout lockdown, but we're just at the point now where we're looking at where would we start with the measures, what's our starting point, and what then would we measure and how would we measure. So it's quite early days on that, Steve. And we're looking to see what's out there. Our head of HR is on a Greater Manchester HR group, so that's something that people are across GM talking about. So we'll work through those points of measures. That's our next step.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. There's a comment from Pippa on the chat, which I totally agree with. I also love the way that you visualised your plan, and that is so engaging, I think.
All credit to Steve.
Peter.
Yvonne, Steve, been tremendous, because I was just thinking way back in March when you first appeared, and it was a kernel of an idea, to now see it's formulated into those diagrams was really good. I think the other thing for me is you seem to be bringing your people along with you. You use the term "we" a lot, not only in your diagrams but when you talk. So that's really good. I love the way that you've used the personas in terms of identifying the fact that not one size fits all. I think that's really good. I guess I've got two questions. I think it was Steve that mentioned that you've done a lot of work culturally, but actually now you have to move, or you've moved now to the technology, and it'd be helpful to understand a little bit about what prompted you to do that. And the second question, I guess, is that old chestnut, value for money. Do you see that this impacting, because I can imagine the regulator sat in the background saying, well, okay, this is all great stuff, Yvonne and Steve, so where does this help in terms of value for money? What's it going to do to the metrics, etc., etc.? So, sorry to bring that one back in, but yeah, I was on a call the other day, and yeah, that was still hanging around. So sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I'll let Steve come in on the digital culture piece. I'll come back then on the VFM, Peter, because you're absolutely right.
Yeah, good question, Peter. So what I think is really important to say is that we already had an IT strategy. Like many other organisations, I think COVID has accelerated a lot of things within that IT strategy. But what we determined fairly quickly was, once we'd identified, right, this is where our new innovation hub is going to be, and this is principally how we want it to work. We then started to get lots of people coming forward and said, well, have you thought about all the piles of paper over here? And have you thought about where we're gonna store that? And the practical day-to-day sense of trying to work remotely comfortably started to then creep in, and we thought, actually, we need to review our IT strategy here and make sure that we're catering for, one, we've got allocated budget, but two, we've got the resources to help us digitalize as much of that operational paper and operational waste is stripped out as efficiently as possible. So we're comfortable with doing that. We're comfortable we've got the right projects in the plan to deliver those things and to deliver the savings for us. But I guess what we are starting to look at now, and it's still in its infancy, if I'm honest, is that paperless initiative. How do we digitalize all that archiving? Where do we store it? How do people access it? All those are very relevant questions that we need to take away and start to think about. The beauty is they're not dependent on what we do with our innovation hub. We can run those things in parallel and separate and in the background with experts around the business that can feed into it.
Yeah. Yvonne's going to answer Peter's question, value for money, and then John has got a question.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, so on value for money, there's some easy bits and there's some really tricky bits, as I'm sure you would imagine. So as I said, there's three elements really to what the future of Johnnie Johnson's going to look like. So if I take the office element, that's an easy one, because we know the cost of the existing office, we know the cost of a new office, and the cost of a new office is much cheaper than the old office. Plus, if we build homes on it, we get rental income for the next 50 years. So that's an easy one to do and to articulate and report on. If we take the my lifestyle approach, that's a bit more difficult, and this is where the team are starting to look at measures. And I know we've had conversations, I think, on here about how to measure productivity, and we're grappling with how do you measure productivity in an organisation that many of us have, that lots of people do lots of different things. It's not about just sat at a screen all day for some people, is it? Because in the real world post-COVID, they'll be out and about with residents. So we're thinking about how does colleague satisfaction and productivity get measured linked to resident satisfaction and service improvement. So that's a bit complex. and the My Futures group that we've got, along with Karen, as saying, as head of people and OD, are looking at that. On the service offer side to it and our improved offer to customers, there's some complexity, and literally only this week we had a really good session. I think it was Monday. Seems like a long time ago, but I'm sure it was only Monday. We were looking at the various elements that we think we'll be improving and what that looks like on service charge. And then what is service chargeable, what is not service chargeable, what might be put onto the residents, what wouldn't be put onto the residents. And if you get a choice and a choice in, when you think about we're into independent living, so this is, you know, I would never say it's bronze, silver, gold package. It's not, because we aim for gold all the time. It's about level of support in it to help you live in your home independently. So that's the context. So that's also a bit tricky. So there's a lot to do, Peter, on your VFM questions, but this is all going to be part of and is part of our project management approach. And our project management approach always has an element of what are the benefits, hard, fast measures, as well as the softer measures. So early days, and no doubt, if you give us another 3 months, we'll be back with some figures for you.
There we are. We've got the season 3 opener already booked. John, you're on mute.
Hi there. Yeah, John Adams from Saxon Weald. I look after the finances. So particularly about value for money, I thought I might get away from that today. But it is important, because clearly whatever we're doing, they look to the finance guys to crunch numbers and see from a numbers perspective if it's going to work. What I'm interested in is I think we're sort of on the same journey as you are, but I think we might need to catch up a little bit. But maybe in other areas we've thought a bit more. I'm interested in the staffing side. We're at the point at the moment where I have a finance team which times maybe need a different set of encouragements to get involved when you're in finance, but just generally how you got your staff. What were some of the simple things that you got to get your staff engaged, given that they're all sitting at home? It wasn't, you couldn't just meet in the breakfast room or in the boardroom and say, let's have a chat about, and whether there were just 1 or 2 things that just really worked in terms of engaging, because I'm really keen to make sure our whole staff are part of this, and it's not just a leadership team solution.
Yeah. I'll just say a tiny little bit, and then Steve can say what he's done. He's done a tremendous, he's taken on, as Steve, a tremendous leadership role with the My Futures group. So we were very clear, you know, as you go, I think we might have talked about this, as you go through lockdown, it's very, you know, we were in a very command approach, you know, we were making decisions, we do this. Then when we came up with this sort of idea, it was really clear. It's all about culture, John, as far as I'm concerned. And we've been doing a lot of work on culture anyway, so it's building on what we've done. So leadership programs, we've got a My Aspirations group, which is Rising Stars, so all levels in the organisation. And what we said, no, it has to be bottom up. And do you know what? We were really worried. I was really worried. We put out a survey very early on to say and this was going back very early April, I would say, if you had to stay at home and work for the next 4 months, how do you feel about that? And I was thinking, I don't know what's going to happen with these results. Anyway, surprisingly, it was 96% said yes, they could work. So that sort of gave us a little bit of light relief that we weren't sort of barking up the wrong tree. But bottom up, we set up My Futures group. So I'll let Steve come in.
Yeah, and I think the real success with how we've done this, as Yvonne says, it's been bottom up, which, you know, it's been really refreshing, I think, because the exec have been able to support what the business actually want to happen, rather than it being a top-down directive. And I think the really important thing, if anyone is considering doing something like we've done, is make sure you get representatives from around the organisation to participate, because they act as the champion for this kind of thing, and they take it back to their operational areas, and you know, they spread that word. And we've tried to be as transparent as we possibly can be. We've made sure that this wasn't a cloak and dagger kind of project. You know, we've provided weekly podcasts to all of our colleagues, where myself or our head of comms and transformation, who's the other driving force behind this, has given some verbal updates. We've also done video updates. We've sent out comms. We've done regular surveys, as Yvonne says. We've tried to make sure there isn't a survey fatigue going on, because you know, people feel like, oh, I'm sick to death of giving all this insight and not seeing any results for it. But what we've also done is gone out to colleagues to say, look, you said, we did, and we're trying to make sure that everything they're telling us we can translate into an action, and that we're delivering those actions, because I think that's really important, that people see and feel as though they're being listened to. So that's been really helpful. Just in terms of the finance and how we've engaged with finance, as I say, we had a representative from finance involved in the project, so that area was well represented. And I think what's been really helpful is because my colleague, the director for finance, reports into Yvonne as well, has been involved in all of the discussions around the strategy for this. It's meant we've worked incredibly closely on that business case. She understands the importance of getting this right first time, and we're working very, very closely on supporting each other through the business case and demonstrating that value for money. So we're not seeing any resistance from anyone in the business, which is quite surprising, but actually really refreshing as well.
And maybe just to add, Johnnie, we actually had members of the My Futures group go out and look at potential places for the innovation hub. So you know, the exec did, and once they'd got it down to a sort of short list, the exec did a room around just to make sure we were all on the same page as what we wanted, because you have to see things to know what you don't want, don't you? So the exec team did obviously do a couple of days where we ran around and saw lots of different places, but actually that started the My Futures group. We just said, you know, where do you want it? Well, you know, where are people living? Where do you want it? Where don't you want it? And they came up with a short list of towns, places to go. They did a lot of running around and having a look and some ideas. And, you know, it's as a leader and as the chief exec, I have to say a little of that is scary, because I am a control freak, but I'm not allowed to be a control freak, am I, when I'm doing bottom up, you know, because that's the right thing for the business and the right thing for everybody that works with us. So that's kind of how we did a bit of that, John. I hope that helps.
It does. I think it's quite remarkable that in a time when under the pandemic we had to be in a control and very direct and very hands-on and lead that way, that you've been able to develop alongside this more cultural and let everyone else do what they need to do. I think that's quite special, because I think we're getting there. I just don't think we're quite as far as maybe you are. I think we're still a little bit in the control world. We haven't quite relinquished the reins.
Bit scary, is John?
It is a bit, yeah. But thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thank you.
That's great, and I'm going to bring the meeting to a close now. Thank you very much, Steve and Yvonne. Another fantastic presentation. If I do reflect back to our very first breakfast briefing, as Andrew says, then things have moved on massively. And I think I remember at the first meeting when everybody was sort of enthusiastic. Oh, we've gone agile in 2 weeks. We never expected it to be done in you know, we expected it to take 2 years. And we've done all this fantastic thing. I remember thinking at the time, yes, but the next thing's going to be about the paper and the process. And I know we haven't even touched on this, Steve. I know you've been doing some great work on looking at processes as well, and that's something that Golden Marzipan. I think we are going to do a little taster session on what we call lightning decision jams. So get into the heart of unpicking your processes very quickly and making sure that those can be agile and able to be worked from anywhere.